NDC. WNDC NDC stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't. Right now, I'm trying to get my mind right about a whole lot of things. Thank God for good cannabis and good beer. Well, the last Friday we got during this time era. Hopefully you can hear me. I can only actually do a live chat on YouTube, and that's why I'm hoping that many of you find me on YouTube enough to be able to excuse me, to be able to follow live, because that's where things are at right now. So it's 2021, and here we are on the last day before spring forward in our time standard. And we're getting more of the sun's rays and all this other stuff to come in, and soon the spring solstice will come, and a lot of these things will happen. But this is the age of Aquarius, and we're in the hotbed of a whole lot of things that are never going to be the way any other thing has been for the past 26,000 years that we've been playing around as upper metaphysical humans on this planet. And that's okay. But I want to come from the standard that I know the best, which is me, whom I am, and not just making a standard of all Black Lives Matter or anything of that nature, but the mere fact that I can't change the obvious. And what I found more in the past year is more of an understanding and an understanding and a awareness of how important this year and last year has ever been as a card-holding citizen in good standings in the United States of these Americas. And a kosher residence of the nation's capital, enough to actually be allowed to transmit to people out there in the outer world. So follow me now. If there was ever a need for us to do something, or to think about doing something, or think about changing or getting your mind right, it's like, how we would do spring cleaning. Well, I think that this is the perfect time for us to start thinking about spring cleaning in our own spirit right now, because it's not the most difficult, but it's the most awkward thing to also concentrate on as we go through our day-to-day. And today is no different than any other day, outside of the fact that this day has never existed on this planet for humans, especially for humans of the caliber of the people who are watching me right now. So follow me now. Now, WNDC stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't. Now, I know that might not seem like much, but everything that I'm trying to project to you is in a manner of expressing to you how unique my standards and structure here is, enough to maybe possibly entertain, enlighten, or enhance anyone else's impression of something that on a normal day they may not have even been concerned about. One of the things that first stands on my mind is the conversation that we had. I was on Facebook, and I had with a friend of mine, Ron, looking out for Brother Orpheus, and he shared on his post how awkward it was this day, if any other day, that he happened to be out and walking, and he just happened to be wearing black, and he's a 6 foot tall black dominant man that's got the heart of a teddy bear, and yet the mind and the manner and the energy of a master, a true master enough that, while he should be no threat in the environment into which he's existed in, respectfully, he was out, traveling normally out on the street in the early morning, and this old white lady, this old privileged California mentality white lady, bless her soul, made it a point of coming up and alerting him as to why he should not be out at that time of day in the wearing all black as a big black guy out there without, it was working on her. I mean, she clutched all her pearls and this, that, and the, to get over there and really honestly, shock this brother for, having done as humble as he is. I could see this scene where he just stops and this old lady, not just a Karen, this is Mrs. Karen. And she walks up and she's like, young man, this, that, and the other, and you can't be doing this, and you're so-and-so and so-and-so and this, that, and the other. And my first instinct traveled through a lot of the other history that I've known as a black dominant male all my life, and have known the history of the stigma that comes with just that instinct or that audacity in what our society has been, all the way up to where it is now, where it's no longer, you can make your voice, your opinions in that manner, anywhere past personal space, and end up with a hate crime, a felony nowadays, because, we don't do that no more. And so follow me. So for a lot of the people that are out there watching this might not be so enlightening or anything to them, because they never had to think about these things in a manner where they had their God-given right to basically demand that everything needs to be. I've had the same kind of feeling. So let me digress. So here on a nice California spring day, the last day of daylight savings time, and my man, just like myself, is walking, minding her own business, and up comes this little privileged white lady that all of a sudden comes up, and she's really offended by the mere fact that, that she didn't clutch all her pearls and then some enough to go over and run over to this boy and say, look, boy, you don't need to be out here at this time in the morning with those clothes on, looking like you do, giving off that kind of energy, because white women like us, well, and technically speaking, it's at this point that he ends his expression of what happened to him that day. The end. Yeah. Deep day. Another day in the light of a black man. And yet all of his well-meaning followers and whatnot, mostly female and mostly white and mostly slightly open and kinky enough to to be more upper metaphysically in the mentality, and yet all supportive of the LGBTQIA NMOP society and community as well. And so I retort and come back and I make a statement that's like, yo, bro, this is my life. I understand exactly what you mean. It's like, we live a day where we're kosher on a daily basis outside of every now and then. When you're this size and you're this kind of character, it's not something that, you are allowed to forget at times, because I've had times of my own where, I might need to voice my opinion or make my presence known in a state of, all hell no, and not necessarily be aware of how terrifying it must look for some people who are expecting for me to, duck your face and turn your eyes away and don't look them in the eye, boy. What you doing over there? I'm sorry. This, that, and the other. And there's people that, not that they've demanded that in their society, but they've had that by privilege so long in their lives. This is where Mr. Hoffman, who made some documentaries about the other baby boomers and whatnot that lived in a pure white life, like a lot of the, people from around the other world and countries that they're not really racist. They're just not really comfortable or accustomed to really understanding what makes you any more important than my need to be more comfortable with your existence in my environment. It's not that I'm trying to make this out to be that, I'm a super, a super minority or, or whatnot of that nature, but no bullshit. This whole country, the history of this country has literally came down to, not necessarily the identification, but the existence of the need to have a certain quality of black male flesh, and everything that came with it, as what built this country, as well as, also, it's not just that it was just blacks. There were people of other cultures that they did the same specimen Titus of, yeah, that's a big one right there. I'll take that one. And I'll take this one, and this and the other, and have that kind of society that no longer exists in today's world. This is 2021. And it's bad enough that while, everybody's got the God-given right to say this, that, and the other, I find it even more interesting how frustrating it must be for people to be told you have to wear a mask. You have to be concerned about someone else. You have to respect someone else's this, that. You cannot just call these people out of their name and think that they're supposed to bow to you when you're trying to get in a rush through them. And no, that's no longer. And yet, one of the biggest obstacles that we're having is being able to explain to people how this has all been built on the not my daughter mentality. Now, that poor little, privileged white woman, while she, might be seen from a racist value or anything, I'll look at this even deeper and darker to the point where, had this been a more perfect world, when little white women were dreaming about finding and someday meeting a tall, dark stranger. In the past, in our histories, it's been the same thing that we're dealing with, even in England with the Queen. And the Queen is no different than that lady that walked up to my man, wearing all black, big black, blackity black, dominant man, walking in the privileged area of California, where people don't really get into that racism thing. Oh, we're just this, that, and the other, and so on and so on. And yet, young man, the hell are you doing? You can't be out here like that, all in black and this, that, and the other. And while some people might see that as racism, it might be a certain culture shock that poor lady might be, being in this California. She could have actually been, Miss Harlequin, that made all of the romances, the deep, dark, little books that little ladies would go off in the side and cross their legs and read, their fantasies that didn't include the same toxic white male dominant feature that they existed with as the infinite power that we have grown or been structured to respect. And therefore, it's always difficult when people that have been built like that have always been around their color, shade, and culture, now have found that now, it's even deeper because they've never met a prince. They've never met this. Coming to America is kind of interesting because, imagine how many times there would be a time where if you did the Coming to America 3, they would come out and the Prince Hakeem, and Hakeem's son goes back to America only to get shot by a fucking cop in a hood just because he was like, what the fuck are you doing with this kind of money, boy? Oh, hell no. You got to have this, that, and the other. And his structure of, yo, man, I am a fucking king of, got him shot. That would be Coming to America 3. And yet here we are going and springing forward into now an era where not only were we supposed to have found some kind of excuse as to why January 6th will always be the top of events that occurred so far in this year. And yet You know, we've had the inauguration, uh we've had we've had everything but a State of the Union address, and yet, you know, here we are at a point where we made it all the way through Black History Month again, without even considering the mere fact that the last time that we all allowed everyone in this country to get away with the same kind of mentality they did again this year resulted in a lot of what happened in the Black Lives Matter and all the other movements that happened all the way up until it became us and them again. And that resulted in what we got January 6th with them misfits, our cousins, our nephews, our nieces, our poor white trash, and ignorant, you know, suburban people who just don't know no better. You know, it's a huge country that's got all of these cultures within every block of something that everybody has been taught looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. And as entertaining as it was for Black folks to enjoy the Black Jesus show on Good Times, there's still people who are struggling with the mere fact that it's the same instinct that exists even now in the royal palace over in the country that everybody here ran from to be here to say that they are who they are. And so if they're still having problems with this issue, then this issue may not be us. It might be you in a certain little way, because technically speaking, without us having been the shining example of more productive people of color in one country than the entire world has to show off as what is a portion of the best part of that country. And so we need to stop with this not my daughter mentality when we think about the mere fact that every person, big back and powerful with a dick swinging and the whole nine, is not a threat no more than the way you would have treated the other superior body you allowed to exist in them. And so each time that a person uses you men, they could never use people of color, Black men, people of color, because people of color, especially Black men, have never been given the same rights and responsibilities as Mr. Charlie. And Miss Sadie didn't even doggone target. Mr. Charlie was Mr. Charlie. And we have to realize that we're still in this kind of mentality that the only way that you could tolerate some, like, what's his name, Cuomo or whatever the dude is, the mayor or governor of New York, that's now all of a sudden having a few 5 chicks come out and say, he touched me wrong, he really made me feel uncomfortable. Of course, that big, burly, doggone, muckety-muck, powerful white dude has had moments where he might get drunk and get lucky. It just so happens that out of the times that he did it, he only struck out 5 times. And only for those powerful 1% Illuminati people that we want to claim exist can you see it only in their white flesh more than you can see Bill Cosby. Still sitting back going, man, shit, man. I'm up in here, man. Look at, man, I've been to the parties. I see them, man. You know, I mean, I didn't think that was what they were into, you know, and now they're coming back. Same people that are coming after him, going after my man, the governor, too. And y'all don't get the mere fact that here we are trying to spring forward into something. And one of the things that we keep jumping over is the mere fact that we have to really honestly look deep inside and realize that the one thing the Negro still isn't free. So I'm gonna share some of Mr. Baldwin's comments if I could pull this off. You know.
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time. It's taken my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brothers and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephews' time. How much time do you want for your progress? My nieces and my nephews' time. How much time do you want? How much time do you want for your progress?
How you doing? Yeah. Make sure you go over to YouTube. I'm on there live right now.
I don't know.
And
I don't know what white people see.
A lot of what I'm doing right now
anymore. I do know very well. That I realized when I was very young that whatever he was looking at, it wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Was he in the corner? It wasn't me. OMG.
What is he? I don't know what white people see, when they look in the Negro.
I put a find the official thing in this title.
That I realized when I was very young.
But it's dark dominance.
Whatever he was looking at, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. It was something he was afraid of. It was something to which he was attracted or which he found repulsive. But it wasn't me. I was not a man. Now, whatever he was looking at, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was something he was afraid of. It was something
I appreciate you.
To which he was attracted.
Yeah, come over there and make a comment, man.
Or which he found repulsive. But it wasn't me. I was not a man. Now, this image,
man,
I don't know
hope
what
that
this image is, but it has something
this thing
to do.
Is working and you're getting all of this.
There's something
Especially
to do. I'm convinced of this.
The
with
words
Puritan
of
God. There's something to do with a peculiar and I believe absolutely bankrupt morality. There's something to do with a peculiar and I believe absolutely bankrupt morality.
And that's where we're at right now.
Under which we all are suffering. The one person who was outside this constriction, in fact, historically, in life, was this pagan.
Hey Chandler, how you doing?
Historically,
how you doing?
In life, was this pagan.
Yeah.
Pagan.
I'm making a really interesting spring forward thing. I'm using
that's right.
some new technology, and if it works, it might be kind of really cool. You might want to check it out and let me know if all of the things are in there. I'm actually playing music.
It seems to me there's
something off of my my sound clip, my roll card, and I'm going into
it seems to me there's a
I'm doing all of this from the house.
Direct reflection.
Help me out and see if you can jump over and
made by the white American.
Appreciate you.
To keep away, to not be threatened by black people. In some ways, the American vision of the world is all wrapped up with their vision of black men, which has to do with their vision of themselves.
Come on, man.
To keep away, to not be threatened by black people.
Not just all people.
In some ways,
black men
the American
too.
Vision of the world,
even the bigger ones,
is all wrapped up with their vision of black men, which has to do with their vision of themselves.
Not that it's a thing where it's different than anyone else, but
the saved are white. That is certainly we will not do business with the devil.
Include me too.
We will not do business with the devil.
And includes my man Ron.
It is not a southern problem. It's a national problem.
National.
What is happening in New Orleans today began to happen over 100 years ago, when in effect the North, which was the government, having freed
come on now,
tens of thousands of illiterate black men,
of thousands of illiterate,
and made no provision for them.
None
whatever. Secretary of State saying, we will not do business with the devil. Began to happen over 100 years ago, when in effect
do business
the North,
with the
which
devil.
was the government, having freed tens of thousands of illiterate black men,
of black men.
The North, which was the government,
the North,
having freed tens of thousands of illiterate black men, and made no provision for them, none whatever. None whatever. It was dumped in the body politic,
to this
and
day.
no one was responsible for that. North, which was the government, having freed tens of thousands of illiterate black men made no provision for them.
None.
None whatever.
None.
None whatever.
None.
They were tens of thousands of illiterate black men. They made no provision for them. None whatever. None whatever. They were
None.
dumped in the body politic, and no one was responsible for them.
None.
Tens of thousands of illiterate
Tens
black
of
men.
thousands of black men.
They made no provision for them.
No provision.
None whatever.
Still to this day.
None whatever. They were
None.
dumped in the body politic,
Dumped.
and no one was responsible for them.
And we've gotten a
They
long
were a
way
force
from there
used
now.
physical
We're
and
doing
industrial
better
football
now.
for everybody. Whatever.
Whatever.
None whatever. They were dumped in the body politic, and no one was responsible for them. None whatever. They were
None.
dumped in the body politic, and no one was responsible for them.
Nobody's
They were a
still
force used
responsible.
physical and industrial football for everybody.
Oh, the football.
They were everybody's target. But in a way, black men were very useful to the Americans because in a country so absolutely undefined, so amorphous, where there were no limits, no height really, and no depth, there was one thing for which one could be certain. One knew where one was by knowing where the Negro was. So amorphous, where there were no limits, no height really, and no depth. There was one thing for which one could be certain. One knew where one was
About
by
where
knowing
the
where
Negro was. Come on, man.
You knew that you were not on the bottom.
How can we spring
Negro
forward
there.
if we're not really?
There was one thing for which one could be certain. One knew where one was by knowing where the Negro was.
And that
You knew
poor
that
little
you were not on
lady
the bottom.
in California.
Because the Negro was there. One knew where one was by knowing where the Negro was.
And
You
sometimes it's
knew that you were
hard
not on the bottom
to explain to somebody.
because the Negro was there. You knew one knows what sin is in the same way. One knows what danger is in the same way. Now this implies a vision of oneself, it seems to me, and a vision of the world which doesn't stop at the American borders.
Does not.
It is also the way America deals with the world. It must, cannot possibly
Hey,
avoid
welcome to John.
moving directly into the heart
So appreciate you coming in.
of the people who make up America. I mean that
So can you
problem
hear
will
the
never
music?
be resolved
And
until everybody
the
in the
words
country in some
and my
way,
voice?
I know how impossible it sounds. However, this is what has to happen.
just wonder.
Is able, somehow able to do without this crutch. Moving directly into the heart of the people who make up America. I mean that problem will never be resolved until everybody in the country in some way, I know how impossible it sounds. However, this is what has to happen.
Say, Chandler,
Is able,
can you hear the
somehow
music
able to do
and
without this crutch.
Baldwin's
However, this
voice
is what has to happen.
and my voice
Is
all
able,
at the same time?
somehow able to do without this crutch.
Nice.
I'm going to describe,
Now,
I can't name names. So
I'm
a hypothetical
broadcasting
white liberal.
with this music that I've gotten for fair use from the creators
Well, I know what he
of
thinks he's
these mixes. So
But what he's mainly doing is something
nice.
which
So
demands
sounds
my
pretty good.
tacit cooperation. I'm going to describe, I can't name names, so a
Yeah.
hypothetical white liberal could do without this crutch. I'm going to describe, I can't name names, so a hypothetical white liberal. However, this is what has to happen. Is able to do without this crutch.
Now, here we
Well,
are.
I know what he thinks he's doing. But what he's mainly doing is something which demands my tacit cooperation. Well, I know what he thinks he's doing. I have to agree that I am what he says I am. No, I have to agree that I am what he says I am in order for us to have any dialogue at all. And if I don't agree, I have to agree that I am what he says I am.
Oh man, where you at?
In order for us to have any
where you at,
dialogue
John?
at all. In order for us to have any dialogue at all. And if I don't agree,
Yeah, we're gonna be
and inevitably,
There's a possibility. I hear it's a rumor
Once in the
that
face,
we'll be up there at the
you're
park this
dealing with.
Sunday.
It means
We've been up
that
there sporadically.
if I'm
all
not what he
yeah, we
takes me
miss
to
you
be,
too. You're a miss.
that means I have a standard of judgment
Yeah.
which is not his, which I may then be using to judge him. If I'm not what he takes me to be, that means I have a standard of judgment which is not his, which I may then be using to judge him. I think the American essentially, I don't think this, I know this. I don't think this, I know this.
Nice.
I think the American, I
What
think
part
the
of North
American,
Carolina?
essentially, I don't think this, I know this. Yes, this is a threat to the American personality. Yes, this is a threat to the American personality as it has so far been constituted. It's a threat to it is a threat to their definition of the world. It's a threat to the way what they think reality is. It's a threat to it is a threat to their definition of the world. It's a threat to the way what they think reality is. It's a threat to it is a threat to their definition of the world. It's a threat to the way what they think reality is. Let me put it personally.
You know,
Safest way to put it.
what makes this really hard is that it's kind of like speaking to someone who they see your lips moving,
Safest way to put it.
but they can't see
Let me put it
where you're
personally.
coming from because they can't see
Safest
through
way to put it.
your
Let me put it
eyes. They
personally.
can't. This is not a case of
Safest
Watermelon
way to put it.
Man where you can
There's
wake up
something in me, for example.
black and then go
Sometimes.
through the black experience.
Certainly when I was younger,
This is
which resented the assumption on which all these things are based. It assumes
and what gets me with this is James Baldwin.
you have something I want. That resented the
And
assumption on which all these things are
as
based.
I
It
recall
assumes
and reflect with this, I look back at experiences like
you have something
the Freddy's and
I want.
a man
Assumes
Ron and my own.
That
You know,
you have
where
something I want. That you have something I want. Just looking at the evidence. Any reason for white people to assume the Negroes want to be like them?
and I don't want to be like them.
Just looking at the evidence.
I want to be
Any
me
reason for white people to assume
in the same
the Negroes
room
want
with
to be
you
like them?
without you thinking that there's only room for
Very
just you.
I said in effect,
That's
the
it.
white man must give up what is in
And if
effect
by
a
chance
the white man must
you
give up
find yourself
what
in
is
one of
in
them
effect a crutch.
conundrums, what the not
It
my
is
daughter
very
instinct,
I said in
consider
effect,
where we're at right
the
now.
white man must give up
It's not
what is
even
in
your
effect a crutch.
say.
So
Mama
must I.
say, Mama sa, Mama
It's
kusa.
entirely true.
And for that poor little white
So
lady in
must I.
California, my man
So must
Ron,
I.
this morning,
This is entirely true. So must I.
all of this becomes relevant
This is entirely true.
enough that
There's
we
something
can
very
more
safe
smile about this than we can
About being a Negro in a
envision
way
this as,
because
oh my God, that's so racist.
you can blame anything that happens to you on it. And this is the worst thing about being a Negro. Quite apart now from New Orleans, where there's something very safe about being a Negro in a way because it's entirely true. There is something very safe about being a Negro in a way because you can blame anything that happens to you on it.
Anything, because you're a Negro.
You can blame anything that happens to you on it. And this is the
Anything.
worst thing about being a Negro. Quite apart
Because
now
you're a
from New Orleans, race riot. And this is the worst thing about being a Negro. Quite a worst thing about it is at one point somewhere in yourself, you have to realize that, all right, you are a Negro and this is all true, but before that, you are a man and your life is in your hands. You are responsible for what happens to you. And the worst thing about it is at one point somewhere in yourself, you have to realize that, all right, you are a Negro and this is all true, but before that, you are a man and your life is in your hands.
And that does not
You are
mean
responsible for everything that happens to you on it.
that you won't
And this
experience
is the thing about it
moments
is at
like
one point somewhere
man
in
Ron.
yourself, you have to realize that, all
when
right,
you're walking
you are
out
a Negro and
being
it's all true,
you.
but before that, you are a man and your life is in your hands. You are responsible for what happens to you. You cannot blame anybody for it. There is no point. There is no one to blame.
And that old
all
woman
right, you are a Negro and it's all true.
was a young woman.
Before that, you are a man
When
and your
James
life is in your
Baldwin
hands.
said these words right
You are
here.
responsible for what happens to you. You cannot blame anybody for it. There is no point. There is no one to blame. You cannot blame anybody for it. There is no point. There is no one to blame.
Nobody.
You cannot blame anybody for it. There is no point. There is no one to blame.
Can't blame anyone.
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to?
Now, here we are. The last day of spring backwards, and we're springing forward. And we've had a new election, a new government, a new reality, a new chance of reflecting and respecting the equation that's been the conflict in this whole country's very fabric into which it exists still today. Even though, no matter how bad it feels, we're still better off than everywhere else, or more people will be leaving than coming. And so here we are, about to lose an hour of reality, all for the sake of gaining more sun and more fun as we structure ourselves to indulge in more than an hour or two extra of life due to its exposure. And yet, as the earth is going through its bipolar wobble, it's not due to slow down until, hey man, if you can find me on Facebook, on YouTube, and this little thing, why don't you come over and make a statement or anything, because you can't hear all that's going on right now over there on YouTube. So why don't you do that? It's in the titles in there. How you doing? Yeah. I don't know if I got it on there, but I'll try. Oop. So anywho, so meanwhile, back down on the farm, here we are, and we're going through what we call spring forward. And for many of us, we have to grow and get to know that we have to eliminate some things that we've ignored in the years past, only for it to come back and bite us in the as a nation. And if there's anything to be said for what I could possibly offer, this is WNDC, which stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't in DC. And if I'm possibly capable of being able to enlighten, entertain, educate any of you on anything that might be helpful to share and subscribe, then please do so. Yeah. So a lot of where I'm going with this is just the mere fact that as a big black dominant black person of respectful means, enough to actually even have a better government clearance than the average misfit, I'd like to at least express the reality that we do exist and more of us do. And one of the complications is the farther I leave this environment out into the rest of what we call this great country of ours, the more the chances of running into a non-believer who, for the same reason, get the same type of instinct from the same kind of image that my man and myself have actually described in just being a big black guy out minding their own business. You know, not even aware that there's some people that are clutching their pearls at just the sight of something that they felt immune to for so long in their lives that it's never existed like it is today. And there's some people out there right now today that are not aware that them just speaking up and speaking their mind can cause them to be actually convicted from a hate crime for something that they've been literally allowed to exist with for all their lives. And this is a whole new day, and this is a new thing, and we've got to go into a new mindset, even if it takes you doing something more than just resetting your clocks, but it's resetting your mind, because our clocks are all digitally prepared to do that for us, but we have to do the work on ourselves. And that's not going to be easy for anyone. As a matter of fact, it's going to take a lot of everyone else that you can find aware, which is not going to be a whole lot. That's the reason why I share these little things, because in the process of it, what I'm trying to get through here is that here we are, springing forward in a bolder and blacker mentality than we've ever done before. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about how comfortable you feel. We have gotten to a point that's so real that I enjoyed a report of the number one Christian rock song on Apple is by a married gay queer female in her life, and how the one thing that they've had to struggle with is how most of their followers personally feel, or are being allowed to feel in this day and age where they live, while they still buy the used to call those Negro records. We used to have people like Pat Boone that used to have to go out and try to do the same thing that some black person did, because they wouldn't buy black music, but they loved black music. And we're in a whole new world right now. We're in a whole new world right now. And if I could do anything else, I can at least put it out here that, hey, this music in the background has been provided to me for fair use. Therefore, it's a fair use as much as what I'm projecting. So what are the odds that somebody's going to call me on something and I have to explain that to a bot? We're living in that kind of world where it's not that I'm doing anything more legal or dislegal. Hey, Jenny, how you doing? If you are over on my YouTube channel, which is in my thing, you can actually hear everything else that I've got on there. There's 2-3 other things that I've got going on here. So, let me know how it sounds when you get over there. Say hey over there. Add, subscribe, comment. So as I sit here on Friday, almost 7 o'clock, realizing that I'm probably about to have to do some other plans that I got with the rest of my Friday. So I'm not going to necessarily talk more of a hole in your screen than you've gotten so far. So this is WNDC. WNDC stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't in DC. And I hope that some of this is entertained, enlightened, or educated some or any one of you. And I hope that you pass it on, subscribe, and share. And if you can, there's my Cash App in there. Please donate, because we're all still in an unemployed state. Therefore, I hate to beg, but nothing says thank you like cash. Yeah, it's good to be heard. It's good to be heard. I think this is going to be more therapeutic if I'm capable of being able to tolerate this enough to reach out and allow each one of you to be connected with me as I am with you. And respect that, because it's all we got left right now. And in order for us to actually get to a better, greater, whatever it is, we have to stop being bashful about some of the things sometimes that even happen to us that instinctively makes us uncomfortable. It's going to make you uncomfortable. you're going to instinctually feel some kind of way when you see some kind of image, like the images that many of us, like myself, are incapable of shaping into some other kind of tolerable existence enough to not cause you to clutch your pearls on a daily basis, and therefore make it your responsibility to make their lives a little more uncomfortable due to your discomfort. So with all that being said, I'm hoping that all of y'all can put in your head some reason to do something better for some other person, but realize this is coming from not just the Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter, but Black men